Welcome back to On Points, Breeders' Cup pre-entry edition. Ed DeRosa alongside James Scully. And James, they let us borrow the Breeders' Cup set. Big week here in Louisville.
Big week here in Louisville. All the horses are starting to come in. We've already got about 25 on the ground, so it's going to be a big weekend for Works. And pre-entries are out, so
Yeah.
excited to be handicapping the races.
Yeah, and those are up at brisnet.com/BC, so plenty of good information there starting now. The draw is Monday. Of course, the big race for our series is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and barring a complete bomb and Complexity or Game Winner not running second to that bomb, I would say the winner is going to be the early Derby favorite coming out of the Juvenile Friday.
I agree, yes, and I think that there is a lot of quality at the top with those two you mentioned, Game Winner and Complexity. It sets up to be like a East-West showdown between those two, but there are a couple other horses of interest, like namely Code of Honor, who ran second in the Champagne. So Champagne, the 1-2 finishers in that race, I think are look pretty good for the Juvenile.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week. The Juvenile fillies and future potential Oaks horses definitely seems more spread out with some Midwest representation as well. But for now, the Derby picture definitely looks East versus West. And early on, we thought maybe Game Winner would be the favorite. The buzz I'm hearing the last few days, though, I'm starting to think Complexity is going to be the favorite.
I think there's a chance for sure, and I'm just taking an early look at those PPs, Ed. There are some other horses in there. Nick's Go, obviously, Wire to Wire, Breeder Security, Mind Control, Wire to Wire, and the Hopeful, and a couple others that are front-running types, but I don't think any of them are as quick as Complexity. I see him, if he breaks, he's going to be like a length clear early because he's just super fast from the gate.
Yeah, and he is fast, and Chad Brown is a very smart trainer, is the type to know to use that speed as a weapon. But it also wouldn't shock me. He's a tactical guy too, and a very good trainer. This might be a case where he doesn't even need the lead if some of those longer prices decide to go out in front. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. And, Game Winner's not going to be far back either, obviously.
Game Winner's not going to be far back. And I'll just say this about him. He's three of his four races, he's been on or real close to the lead. That Del Mar Futurity, he did rate in that race, but he was in the far outside, post 6, never had any kickback. We saw with Nyquist back in 2015 where he broke from post 14, and while he was rating in that Juvenile, Mario Gutierrez kept him wide the entire way, so he never took any kickback and then circled wide on the turn and one going away. So for me, Game Winner, I don't envision him being on the pace, so an inside or maybe even a middle post, it might be first time kickback for him, so that is a little bit of an element of intrigue when looking at Game Winner.
Obviously, we'll get down to official picks, so to speak, next week. Know a lot more with the draw. But at this stage, can you see yourself going any deeper than the 3 you mentioned at the top, the 2 from the Champagne and Game Winner?
No, I can't.
Yeah, me neither. And I'll probably maybe settle on Complexity as a single. We'll see. We'd be remiss if in the scope of the Breeders' Cup we didn't just touch on briefly the Juvenile Turf, and when we know the body of the field, we can get into it a little bit more. But I bring that up because last year we had Mendelssohn, Catholic Boy, they're both in the Classic. A few other horses made some noise on the Derby trail coming out of the turf. First pass through, anyone strike you as a potential American Classic type in that race?
Well, perhaps Current, who's by Kerwin, that won the Bourbon at Keeneland for Todd Pletcher, that's in the Juvenile Turf. But, one thing, taking a look at that race, I mean, seeing Aidan O'Brien with those two, Anthony Van Dyck and Broome, it's like that those two are both, really classy individuals, and I could envision the Euros being tough in that race, whereas in the Juvenile Phillies Turf, none of those Euros are going to beat Newspaper of Record if she shows up on Breeders' Cup Day.
She seems to have a lot of buzz for sure. And you mentioned Todd Pletcher's horse in the Juvenile Turf, Anthony Stabile, tweeting yesterday, and I didn't realize it until he said it. Pletcher, no dirt horses in the Breeders' Cup, which is incredible.
Incredible.
But it speaks to, he is the type that he's not shy of switching surfaces. I mean, he's had Honey Rider, Balto Star way back when, ran on turf. He's not like sort of your Baffert who really sticks to dirt, or a Lucas type, even though that was his mentor.
And he's had multiple Grade 1 winner High Happy this year, who's entered in the Breeders' Cup Turf. And Pletcher has won 2 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf events with Pluck and More Than Real.
Yeah, and neither of those two ended up going to dirt, but that's not to say that this one couldn't. Like you said, he's by Curlin. So yeah, lots of interesting storylines on the inaugural Future Stars Friday card, November 2nd at Churchill. Again, all the information's at brisnet.com/BC, and we're looking forward to the Juvenile and seeing what it means for the Derby picture.
All right, sounds good, Ed. Look forward to talking to you next week.